what the CIA did at Gitmo, apparently, ending in 2006, but I guess still in play potentially today, right, JR? There's no reason to believe that some of these guys still aren't out there doing it. So you had Gitmo, and then apparently not far from Gitmo, I don't know, a couple of, on the property, a few hundred yards away, it says here, from the administrative offices. This is an Associated Press story. They broke this. A few hundred yards away from the administrative offices at Guantánamo Bay were 8 small cottages hidden in a ridge covered in thick scrub and cactus. And in those cottages were real beds with real sheets, not Army-issued cots. And what had happened here was that the CIA took dozens of the detainees. 632 arrived in 2002, 117 more arrived. Of course, as we well know, it turned out many of them had no extremist ties at all, and we let many of them go. Some have been cleared for release now by the military, but remain there because we don't know what to do with them and no country will take them. It's a giant miscarriage of justice happening there, but this story is not about that. So out of those hundreds and hundreds of detainees, the CIA took dozens of them and began to talk to them and analyze whether they could turn these guys into double agents and send them back across the world, back to the battlefield, back to Al-Qaeda, back to the Taliban, and whether these guys could then serve as double agents feeding us information. It is straight out of the Homeland, which is reviewed weekly on What the Flick, by the way. It's a really cool story, this idea, and it means that we took these guys that were called by Don Rumsfeld and by George Bush as the very worst of a very bad lot. That was what Dick Cheney said. Don Rumsfeld said they were among the most dangerous, best trained, vicious killers on the face of the earth. And we took some of these guys. Now, dozens were considered for it. It ended up being just a handful, maybe a dozen, we don't quite know. It sounded to me from reading the story that no more than a dozen were taken. And we made these guys double agents, and they signed agreements to work for America. We promised to take care of their families, although one guy says that he accepted the deal only because we threatened to harm his family, according to this guy. But of course, we know we did that with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, so it's not inconceivable they wouldn't threaten to do that. So that we took these guys and we sent them back out knowing full well that there was a very real risk that these guys would simply disregard that deal that they made with the CIA and kill Americans on the battlefield and then get up and say publicly, guess who turned me loose? These guys, saying I'd work for the CIA, but I would never do that. I would never betray my brothers, and now I'm back out here killing Americans. President Bush was very interested in this plan. In 2006, he personally interviewed a junior CIA case officer. He'd just returned from Afghanistan, where the agency typically met with those agents. And Barack Obama, when he came into office in 2009, was also interested in the plan. Shortly after taking office, he ordered a review of the former detainees working as double agents because they were providing information that he used in Predator drone strikes. I guess that this is the spy game, and it is dangerous, and it is ugly, and it is filled with risk. But I think, I don't know, my instant reaction was, of course they should do this. And if you have a chance to turn somebody and get information and shorten the war and achieve peace quicker, then you absolutely do it. And as I said, they took these guys to these cots, to this sort of, they called it Penny Lane because one of the prisons at Guantanamo was called Strawberry Fields, so they named this after the other Beatles song, Penny Lane. The other Beatles song, because the Beatles, they only had the 2 songs. And these places were way nicer, much nicer. Again, actually a real bed, which is something these Guantanamo detainees never saw. The cottages were designed to feel more like hotel rooms than prison cells, and some CIA officials jokingly referred to them collectively as the Marriott. And the guys who eventually were taken in were from, it says here, a variety of countries, and they were turned into spies who signed an agreement with the CIA. The CIA declined to comment, but a number of people who'd worked in this spoke to the CIA, spoke to the Associated Press about the story. And of course, infiltrating Al-Qaeda has been just about that's the holy grail in the intelligence game since September 11th, 2011. Probably should have been the holy grail before that. I find it to be a remarkable story and a very bold story and a bold action taken by the agency.
Well, this, I mean,
go ahead, Jared.
I guess what stood out to me about this was, it seems that all of the characterizations for a lot of these guys, it was 100%. Let's put it that way. And the fact that they kept it secret, we know there's a lot of things they keep secret for whatever reasons they have, for military purposes, for trying to get a certain to get a certain objective accomplished. But when you say the most vile, dangerous, tactical killers in the world we have in this one place, and we all know there's many prisoners at Guantanamo that don't need to be there, especially if they're not doing anything with the ones that deserve to be there. It's obvious that they know that some level of that was BS. Because you wouldn't trust the most vile, vicious, American-hating prisoners and go, I think some of you guys might have a chance to. I mean, they probably took the ones that they knew that were there, didn't need to be there, or even when they brought them in, had this feel that there wasn't a 100%, these guys have all done this. Because we know that, but that's one of the things they're hiding. So, I don't know, it's fine that, I guess, if you're trying to get to an objective of, which I don't think they were trying to end a war, but when you're trying to get to a certain objective with your war that you've started, that you're using these guys. But I guess my only problem is I don't have an answer that they should have done with these guys instead. It's just calling that it's bullshit is all I'm saying.
Look, I mean, the bullshit is unquestionable. There's no, look, of the 779 people taken to Guantanamo Bay, more than 3/4 have been released. Well, I guess they weren't the worst of the worst. And if they were the worst of the worst, why did you release them? Okay, so there's no question. You're right on that. But taking guys who are willing to go back and help us and giving them money for it, hey, man, first of all, it's the American way. We're paying them. And money will change everybody. Some of these guys apparently got into this because they thought that Al-Qaeda had, some of it just wanted money. Others thought that Al-Qaeda had perverted Islam, that's not what these guys were about. Either way, I think it's bold, and no matter what, it's certainly an interesting story and a good story for the Associated Press to get.